Xavier Renegade Angel is a show like no other.
I'm putting you out to work the field!
Whippity whippity whoa! And what do you call these wind monkeys? Wiggables?
Wiggers. Well, I caught this wigger staring saucy at my mistress.
It is so barely coherent that at times it comes across as a combination of a YouTube poop.
Holy sh**! Squidward! The sky had a Pokemon from my cereal box!
And an animation made entirely by AI.
Hey, who the fuck are you? Do you have any apples?
And given my recent video on bad graphics, I must mention that it looks like an early PS2 game. Xavier Renegade Angel is the coldest medium, meaning that you cannot passively watch the show. The show is so rapid fire that the plot can change as quickly as Xavier's voice changes from syllable to syllable.
I called you. No, I called you, and you sound like the ugliest son of a bitch I ever heard.
A passive viewing will leave you feeling like you've just watched a load of nonsense. The very fabric of reality changes from scene to scene. But if you are paying attention, believe it or not, the episodes do have a consistent plot. Given the show's bizarre nature, I felt the need to explain that. So who is Xavier? Well, he is a wanderer and a philosopher, though he is awful at both of these things.
I suppose you'll be wanting to hear my story.
What?
I don't like to tell people my story, but you've been so very kind.
Actually, I have to get going.
The typical episode usually entails Xavier setting out to learn about life and help others. Only he never really learns anything, and everyone he encounters is always worse off for having met him. The show often operates on the inconsistent logic that we might encounter when we are dreaming, and things sort of just happen, but it is alluded to that this could all be in Xavier's head, and this weird imagery throughout the show are just psychological abstractions, or how Xavier himself perceives things. The important thing to remember is that Xavier is both narcissistic and astonishingly stupid. The catalyst for his philosophical and spiritual journey is that he is searching for whoever murdered his father. The irony is that Xavier himself is the one who killed his father by accidentally setting his house on fire. This means that Xavier is literally searching for himself, which is a phrase that is often associated with New Age pseudo-spirituality. A lot of people say they are finding themselves as a way to make themselves seem deeper than they really are. Xavier isn't deep. He is a pseudo-intellectual who spews word salad and wants to LARP as a hero. Wow, this one is hitting a little close to home. He truly is literally me. I should also note that the father is often symbolic of God in many works of fiction, so Xavier killing his father is much like Nietzsche's proclamation that God is dead and we have killed him. Both God and the father figure, representing meaning and guidance, means that Xavier is left adrift, with no true goal or purpose. Xavier cannot psychologically accept this, so he acts as if he is a vigilante in a western, going from town to town trying to help people and spread his wisdom. Except, Xavier is useless and has no real wisdom to offer. He admits so himself.
So you use your powers to save people?
Powers are for the weak. I have no powers. I mean, unless you count the power to blow minds.
His holier-than-thou attitude constantly causes catastrophe, as he meddles in others' affairs, often on behalf of people who never wanted nor asked for his help. The formulaic nature of the show is also reminiscent of Don Quixote. Xavier as a character is also similar as well. Don Quixote sets out on a quest where he makes everyone else suffer as a result of his incompetence and unfounded idealism. Xavier is Don Quixote for the 21st century. It's much more absurd and over the top, but is a very similar idea. One of my favorite parts of the show is the final episode of Season 1, where it concludes the arc of the season. Xavier actually does find himself. So how does he deal with this? He fights himself. He literally encounters a doppelganger of himself who he must have a showdown with in a classic Wild West fashion. But he does not fight with fists, nor with guns. Instead, he has a battle of wits.
This psyche is not big enough for two metaphysical seekers. You couldn't seek your way out of a cardboard bag.
This showcases just how immature Xavier truly is. My favorite line of this interaction is,
"Look at you. You look so superficial. You probably judge things by their physical appearance."
There is so much to unpack from just that one line, but I'll leave that to you. Speaking of physical appearance though, I love Xavier's design. He looks like a cryptozoological creature, which fits Xavier's credulous nature. He also invokes Native American spirituality a lot, often misappropriating it.
I better take a look at you, Stat. I'm a certified Wahakamana healer. You see, I spent 9 years as the pupil of a wise Apachistani shaman.
So it's fitting that he almost looks like a creature from Native American myths and folklore. Perhaps my favorite detail, though, is a small one. He has this odd pillbug carapace on his shoulder. I mentioned in my drive video that the carapace symbolizes a protective shield that guards man from feelings of vulnerability. But I think the more interesting symbolism here is much more evident. Xavier, quite literally, has a chip on his shoulder. He goes from town to town, practically asking to get beat up, and often, hoo boy, he does get his serving of pain fries.
Woo boy, order up. Old Xavier's got another basket of pain fries on the plate, and the emotional ketchup is a blubbering well of tears.
You could make a drinking game out of how many times Xavier gets beaten up, yet he never learns a thing from these encounters. Equally intriguing is that Xavier is also a chimera. Chimeras are creatures that are made from parts of other creatures. Xavier has a bird beak, 6 nipples, a snake for an arm, a head of human hair, yet also fur covering his whole body. He also has heterochromia, which is a fancy word for different colored eyes. Fun fact, in real life too, heterochromia is more common in chimeric beings. Chimeras symbolically represent contradiction, which is what Xavier is, and in a meta sense, also represents the show itself. Not to mention that his legs are backwards, which fit the 1 step forward, 2 steps back outcomes to his journeys. In the final episode, through a series of unfortunate and ridiculous events, Xavier loses his virginity, only to find out afterwards that the woman was his mother. At first glance, this just seems like shock value, and honestly, if you've watched the rest of the series up to this point, it's par for the course given the show's tendency towards dark humor and gross out moments. But in a deeper sense, you may recall that Xavier also murdered his father, so this combination of these two events make Xavier a modern-day Oedipus. The line between comedy and tragedy is a fine one. This show also has the best ending ever, concluding this epic.
Not how you imagine yourself, but how you truly are.
Hot dang! I'm cured.
Cured? Who said there was anything wrong with you?
So how the hell is he a literally me character, you may ask? Surely I'm crazy and Xavier is too strange of a creature living in an irrational universe that makes no sense whatsoever. But then again, aren't we all? The creators of the show say it's a cautionary tale about the dangers of spirituality, and it pokes fun at things like Christian Science, anarchist communes, and the commodification of Eastern philosophy. As someone who's been on both sides of the fence, once being a fedora-tipping Reddit-tier atheist, yet also being tempted to live in the woods as a shaman and starting my own cult, I think this story's message is important. We need balance in all things. Xavier is what you get when you get into woo territory. When in your search for meaning, you embrace a bunch of nonsense to an unhealthy degree. Xavier Renegade Angel is Don Quixote, Oedipus, Zarathustra, and of course, literally me. Our occulturation continues as we ask ourselves, what dog life?